Okay, I'm going to start bringing people into the room. Eight 873-1626. I'm going to allow you to talk. Can you please let me know who you are? Eight 873-1626. Please unmute yourself and let me know who you are.
Well, Frank, I don't know if it's me or not, but this is Mel.
I got you, Mel. I don't know who it is. I'm going to disable their talking, and if they need to say something, then I guess we'll go from there. And for the PennDOT folks on the line, I have enabled screen sharing if you need to do so.
Thanks, Frank.
I think that's Mel's microphone.
What's my microphone?
You have everybody, Frank?
You getting some kind of feedback from me?
I have no feedback from you, Spoon.
All right. Thank you, sir. I can be quiet now. If you see me disappear, I'm checking my ribs in the oven. I'll be right back.
Okay, and I'll be over after the meeting.
No, that's right. Okay,
Hey.
if we have everybody here, we'll get started. We'll start with a moment of silent meditation, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of
United
America,
States of America,
and
and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation,
one nation,
under
Under
God,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, welcome, council people, PennDOT officials, city officials. This is the study session for May the 6th with PennDOT. We're reviewing the progress of the Bayfront Highway project. And so to bring everyone up to speed who has not been involved since our last public hearing, there have been 2 peer reviews and that PennDOT had conducted with their consultant, and they have rolled those the results out to selected people and probably now on their website, but most people have not been privy to it. And so this will be an opportunity for PennDOT to show the staged progress and then and take public comment. So if it's okay with the PennDOT officials, I think the way that we might do this is to first have you present the update on the roundabouts, and then we could take comments from council, and then we do the same for the bridge. And then after those comments, we could take general comments. If anyone objects or would like to run this a different way, you can raise your hand in the chat if you had something else outlined before this of a way to proceed.
I think we're good with that, Mr. Keys.
Okay, then I turn it over to PennDOT.
Okay, Brian, you have control of the slides, or is that Tom?
I do.
Okay, you wanna flip the first one?
Yep.
So I wanted to welcome everybody tonight. The presentation, Mr. Keys gave us a great overview. He kind of stole my thunder. We've been spending quite a bit of time the last couple months doing peer reviews on the roundabouts, especially regarded to pedestrian and bicycle safety, which was a key message that we heard from all of you. We've also spent some significant time looking at potential treatments and visual impacts or benefits to the pedestrian bridge. And just something to note with that, even though we only looked at one pedestrian bridge, any of these treatments could be transferred to the other ones as we advance them. It's meant to get, I guess, some creative juices flowing and get some input from the peer review committees, which I think was incredibly positive, both on the roundabouts and the pedestrian bridges. So tonight's meant to give you a brief overview of what we've worked on, and again, where we're going with the next steps. So we just, project updates, again, Michael Keys gave a great overview, but we just wanted to refresh everybody's memory. We know it's been a little bit since we've talked with you, a couple months, but with that, I'm gonna transition it over to Brian. And Brian, I see we already have a question from Liz. Who were the local representatives on the peer review committee? I think that's coming up. Do we have that?
I don't think I had that as a slide. I can look for that list. Mr. Keys was the representative from City Council, but many of the organizations, including the city, the county, and others that we've been working with so far on our coordinating committee, were part of those teams. So thanks for the question, and thank you, Jen, for the intro, and thank you to council for having us again. It's been a few months. Good to be back with you. Thanks for the time. Again, my name is Brian McNulty. I'm the district executive for PennDOT District 1, and I have nearly 50 slides. I'm going to go through many of them very quickly. I would expect this to be about a 20-minute presentation if I were to go straight through. But the suggestion to pause after the roundabouts piece for some questions and comment, we can work with that for sure. So I'll start with an overview of what this project is. Again, it's for the most part the 3 intersections of Sassafras, State and Holland Street as they intersect with the Bayfront Parkway. And then way off to the east, we have the Soldiers and Sailors Bridge, and we'll talk more about that next. This project is an ancillary project. That's sort of something that we knew we had to get done before CSX would be able to relocate their tracks. So those green dashed lines show where CSX will be moving their storage tracks in the future, and we needed to build this bridge first. So this is a contract that is out there. We've opened bids on it, and we should all be seeing some action on that project very soon. Again, just a quick review of what the project is. This is all information that we've shared before. No changes to this necessarily, but Sassafras Street, what you see in pink is a pedestrian or bicyclist amenity. So a multi-use path or a sidewalk. Green space is green space. So as we've said before, those are places that are opportunities for landscaping, trees, etc. And the yellow is the traffic lanes. So we have a roundabout proposed at the Sassafras Street extension. And you can see part of the Front Street project, which is a Port Authority project related to ours. Of course, they're somewhat related, but we are not managing that project. We're coordinating with the port. State Street includes grade separation of the intersection. So right now, the intersection is really built on a bridge above some railroad tracks. That existing bridge would be completely removed and replaced with this bridge that is really more like almost like a cap. There's a lot of green space on that bridge where we separate the through traffic, that east and west through traffic from the parkway, from the rest of the traffic, and it really will be a much smaller intersection for pedestrians and vehicles. The purple is a pedestrian bridge. So I forgot to mention that, I think, on the last slide, but overall, the preferred alternative for this project includes a pedestrian bridge at each intersection. We'll talk more about that, but as shared before, starting with the first phase of construction, we obtained the build grant and other monies, and these pedestrian bridges at SAS and at State will not be part of phase one. Holland Street will have a pedestrian bridge as part of phase one. So again, a lot of pink showing the connections of multimodal paths that don't exist today. That's a big part of what this project is. Kind of a boulevard look with some green space on State Street, and a lot of green space in the project in general. Here's Holland Street. This is the intersection where a pedestrian bridge will be included in phase one of construction. But similar to the Sassafras intersection, otherwise you've got green space, pedestrian connections, and a dual lane roundabout for vehicular traffic. So the peer review was in response to some of the discussions that we had with City Council. We've attended, as Jen mentioned, I think three different meetings where we talked about, answered a lot of questions, talked about concerns. This was an opportunity to bring in another consultant. In this case, it was Kittleson and Associates. They are nationally known experts in the design of roundabouts. So they were tasked with providing a peer review of our roundabouts, specifically just looking at traffic operations and geometrics, pedestrian improvements, and so forth. So Kittleson and Associates is involved in a lot of nationwide research projects, guidance. They've got a great history and experience in this area, so they did a great job with the peer review. I won't include everything that they did and shared with us. So this is just the high level overview. They looked at 3 different scenarios. So these are, I guess I would say, increasing in roundabout size from 1 to 3. 3 being the current plan, which is shown on your screen now, a dual lane roundabout at every, or dual lanes, I should say, at every approach. So scenario 2 was to reduce the Sassafras Street entrance or approach to just 1 lane. And scenario one was to reduce every single leg to one lane. So we wanted them to look at all of those options and see how they would perform. They provided data for what number one would look like, which was the most intense diet, and it failed. So it actually had traffic. If this approach of eastbound or westbound traffic were shrunk to one lane, the queue at the peak would back up all the way to the State Street intersection. In general, the volume to capacity was not adequate for a single lane roundabout. So I didn't include information about that scenario. Scenario two, on the other hand, was something that they recommended as being acceptable. So it includes a reduction in lanes on that Sassafras Street extension. Instead of 2 lanes entering the roundabout, it would only be 1. So that was their assessment, and I should be careful as I'm speaking for these firms that do great work. They're the experts in these areas, not myself so much. So we have them available for more technical questions on the call. This is a win for the project. I think I hope many would agree. This is a place where now that pedestrian crossing is reduced significantly. And it really allows us to provide a bigger splitter island here, which again is an opportunity for green space and more green space beside that lane as well. So I think the pedestrian experience would be significantly better crossing that leg of the intersection. So that was one of the outcomes. They took a similar look at Holland, very similar look. In this case, they looked at 4 different scenarios. Of course, the Sassafras is only a 3-legged roundabout, since there's no southern approach to it due to the wall and the bluff. In this case, we have a four-way intersection. So they looked at the first, again, the option to completely cut it to a 1-lane roundabout on all approaches, then to just reduce Holland Street approaches north and south to 1 lane. And then the third was based on some of their findings that showed that, it might be an option or something to consider to just reduce that southbound approach to 1 lane. And as you can see in the plan, this is the current PennDOT design, which is number 4 scenario that includes dual lanes. So their findings were very similar, and ultimately through some discussion there, determined that the same could be done here. So where the pedestrian crosswalk is on Holland, that's on the north side of the intersection, where we had 2 lanes shown prior, that this would work. There would still be a queue. I probably didn't explain this on the last slide, but when you see queue, this is a 120-foot queue in the PM rush hour, which is approximately 6 cars at the PM peak would back up on Holland Street with only 1 lane. So that's something that we can live with for the sake of the improvements gained. Everything's a trade-off in these areas, so that's a little bigger queue than was provided on the current design that had 2 lanes, but we can work with that. And again, same benefits there, that the pedestrian crossing of that lane was reduced nearly by half. So that's another win. Volume to capacity is just a way to measure, whether or not the designed or the planned roundabout can handle the anticipated capacity. So that's a ratio that, if you're doing this right, you should have a number less than 0.95, and that was just one of the many ways that Kittleson checked to make sure that this would be acceptable. I'll pause on this slide, and I guess the other thing that I'd offer up that was discussed in the peer review was something that was brought up by council, and that is the opportunity for maybe raised crosswalks or some other kind of treatment. That is something that we can do. So we've done that elsewhere. I'd offer a little caveat there that raised sidewalks are difficult to plow. So we need to talk with the city about that that piece of it. If that's something that the city is okay with plowing, I'm assuming they're the ones that plow that. That's not a state route at Holland, but we can work through that conversation, in an offline in a different setting. But that is something that is known to provide an extra level of safety for pedestrians. You can also provide just a different material. We've done stamped concrete, that looks like brick or asphalt or things like that you probably have elsewhere in the city. So those things are still on the table for sure. But that's the summary of the findings from the roundabout peer reviews. Mr. Keys, if you'd like to entertain questions, we're ready.
I don't have this is Mel. I don't have a question, but I just got a call from Jim Winarski. He didn't sign in as an attendee, but he did sign in as a guest, and he's listening. Just wanted council to know that.
Thanks, Mel. Any council people like to comment?
Yes, so there's going to be dual roundabouts on both of both Sassafras and Holland, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I thought that I had some familiarity with roundabouts because I do drive in my car and travel. But last Friday, I was in the Sagertown and Conneaut Lake area. I met a friend, and the Conneaut Lake one that I was on was a dual one, and I ended up having to get off it and back on it again because I was confused. So where is so how would I, like, if I had a mistake, then how would I get back on it?
That's one of the nice things about having two roundabouts relatively close to each other is that it really, without you having to, if you're heading the wrong direction, you probably can just take the next roundabout all the way around. It's very simple to do a U-turn in that scenario. But yeah, if your error was that maybe you went north, I mean, just like any other intersection, you would just need to find a place to turn around to come back to the roundabout. To hopefully make it more clear, we would have overhead signage marking each lane, depending on where you want to go, to hopefully make that more clear for drivers of which lane they should be in. It really works similarly to any other intersection where, if you're going to be making a right, you're going to want to be in the right lane, and it operates pretty similarly.
And there will be pedestrian at-grade crossings on the roundabouts, not just the bridges?
What we have shown here is for Holland Street, this is the only at-grade crossing of that roundabout. So it's on the north side up by the intermodal center and the library. Because we're sending pedestrians across a pedestrian bridge, across the parkway here, we are not proposing crossings at grade. We just think this is the safest way for people to cross.
Well, we're going to talk about the bridges next, but is Kittleson going to be involved in this anymore?
Yes. Well, we still have access to them. We can, we can have them look at anything we need to, but as far as the peer review goes, that piece of it is mostly complete of their assessment.
Did the peer review committee vote on this, or was it? I have to tell you, we know that Michael Keys was on peer review, but we have had no updates since our, since our public hearing, which by the way, PennDOT says on its website that it was a public meeting. I hope you edit that to reflect that it was actually a public hearing, because we had transcripts of that. It was a public hearing, not a public meeting. So I read all the testimony that was presented. So did the peer review committee, I mean, it would be really helpful for us to know who else is on the peer review committee. And did they then vote, or was there still resistance to the roundabouts in general? Because I mean, it sounds like, okay, there's some progress, and Kittleson says, hey, we're really innovative with roundabouts and we're going to get more green space. But you well know that that was one of the big objections, that it seemed to reflect PennDOT's plan that this was to get cars through. When you said that there were going to be 5 cars backed up, I'm sorry, that just doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. And I also wonder, has the pandemic, possible changes in work habits figured into this at all? And my third question is, we do have a new administration since we had our meeting, our public hearing. We have a Secretary of Transportation who has made environmental justice a hallmark of transportation policy. So we had an interesting meeting today about a totally different topic, and have heard that with a change in administration on a totally different project, not related to this, there will be definitely more attention paid to environmental justice. So I guess I have 3 questions. Who's on the peer review committee? You can send me that later. Did the peer review committee agree on this, or was there still disagreement? Because it doesn't help us to know that, okay, PennDOT changed its mind. What did the peer review committee, how many people are on it, and did they actually get to vote? And third, will the impact of having a new Secretary of Transportation cause PennDOT to rethink a $78 million project that goes through the heart of the city? Is there a way to rectify? I was looking through some old stuff, and I happened to find a story from the Atlantic from 2015, How to Decimate a City. And it's all about how these urban highways have to be fixed. So Brian, if you could kind of go through that. Peer review committee, Biden administration, and then a pandemic too. I mean, work habits, has that changed? So it's a lot of questions, but hey, we haven't talked to you in months, so I'm going to take advantage of it.
Brian, why don't we tag team this? Because you're right, Liz, you have a couple subsections of questions there. So I'm looking at the attendees for the peer review, and Brian will send you the detailed list, but just for the good of folks watching. So there were representatives from the City of Erie, Erie City Council, the Governor's Northwest Regional Office, Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, Erie County, Erie Community Foundation, the Bayfront East Side Task Force, our West Bayfront, UPMC, I'm looking, Erie Insurance, EMPTA, Bike Erie, the WQLN Public Media, Voices for Independence, and the Port Authority. I'm also seeing representatives from Erie Arts and Culture, Erie Events, Scott Enterprises, FHWA, the State Transportation Committee, and obviously PennDOT and our consultants. So I think we had about 35 people. And the peer reviews are not set up, Liz, as like a voting yes or no. It's more of a, this is what we saw. And I think Brian kind of gave that overview. And, I can't speak for the members of the committee, but I think I can make the general statement that we didn't hear any violent objections. Like, I think most people thought, yes, this seems to make sense. We understand how you came to these conclusions. And again, Liz, when you get the list, you can reach out to those people specifically. We did not give you any updates because, again, Mr. Keys was your representative on the board, and we promised once we completed those 2 peer reviews, we would come back to all of you. So You know, that's the same for any of those organizations. We, you know, provide the information to those representatives. And again, Mr. Keys was very active in both the peer reviews, provided us great comments and feedback. At least I thought so. Maybe he has a different perspective, but I can't say enough again about his participation in these groups. So with that, I'll also address you know, the change in administration in DC. So I think, Liz, that's kind of there are different perspectives, as you said, or different emphasis, and I think some of that is definitely good. I think we're all waiting to see how this all plays out. And, you know, President Biden, I think, as you have seen, has proposed the largest infrastructure package since President Eisenhower. So those things are all coming into play. And, you know, there's definitely an emphasis, I'm sure you've seen on the news, for passenger rail and non-highway modes, which I think is also incredibly positive.
Meeting again, I hit something, knocked me out.
And with that, I will pause. Brian, you wanna pick up? Sorry, Liz, and if I'm missing any specifics, we'll come back. I know you have a lot of questions, and that's good. That's good. Brian, you wanna chime in?
Yeah, thanks. Just I'll say that our peer review minutes are posted on our website, Liz, and we can share those with you as well, like we will the list. And it's easy to change the meeting from the word meeting to hearing. We can do that, and we'd also love to see the transcript of those as well. I don't know that we've received that yet.
Wow. I mean, we paid for that. That's disappointing that it wasn't passed along. I'm not going to make a copy of it, but I would hope that it was in the city clerk's office, and that's where I got my copy. So I read every single thing in there. So I think that would be, I also went through and did my own tabulation based on the number of comments that remember that was a really long public hearing. So yes. I think I tabulated, I think there were 170 comments between the written testimony and the spoken testimony. So I think that would be really helpful for you to have. I guess overall, I'd like to say that I think that we at least deserve some type of pat on the back, because, we took a lot of, now I'm not going to use a bad word. We took a lot of hassle. We were hassled for insisting on a public hearing because of, you have to understand what we had to endure from the bigwigs who were part of that peer review committee. Oh, you're going to threaten this money, even from people at City Hall. You're threatening the money coming through. So we actually got some changes. Now, I don't know if this is the best change, but I think it certainly demonstrates at least the value of trying to have more citizen engagement. So I guess thanks to PennDOT for bringing in Kittleson and Associates for trying to have you look at a different way of doing things. So my other question, though, was about the workforce, and we know that things have changed because of the pandemic. There may be long-term more work at home instead of commuting. Have you considered that at all?
Brian, you want me to take a stab at that answer?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. Yeah.
So, Liz, I will tell you the short answer is no, but the longer answer is yes. So I think I can speak on behalf of the department and the MPO. So I think everybody right now is trying to figure out what those trends are, right? Including the state, like with our employees and, probably even the city. Like, do you now have a teleworking policy when you didn't before? Things like that. So I will tell you that depending on who you talk to, you will get different answers. Is this like a little blip on the radar where, yes, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for traffic volumes to get back to where they were or people to come back in. But I will tell you that statistically speaking, and this is what I've heard from the highway division, the average daily traffic for trucks is back to where it was pre-COVID. for automobiles, meaning, you know, me driving to work or whatever, I want to say 2 months ago, we were at about 85 to 90% of pre-COVID. And driving into the office today and coming home, it seemed like we were back at post-COVID levels. But one thing we have seen is, instead of your typical peak hours, and this is more observatory on my part, I see traffic spread out more throughout the day because people have some flexibility if they're working from home or whatever the dynamic is. So I will tell you that the MPO, I have no doubt, will be looking at this longer term. But for this analysis, no, we did not take those kind of blips in traffic projections, you know, weather patterns change. We did not take that into account at this time.
Okay.
And Liz, listen, I am glad to hear you say that you're somewhat pleased. I will take that. That's a win. But I'm telling you, I think we're going to knock your socks off with the pedestrian bridge part of the presentation.
Good.
So I'm looking forward to your reaction when we get done with the second half.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Keys. The first question is at the Soldier and Sailors Home. That was the first item you had shown there, Brian. Is that a vehicle bridge or a pedestrian bridge?
It's designed to be both, so it will carry vehicles. Part of the purpose of it is to replace the at-grade crossing that exists a little further to the east that is mostly used, I think, for the Soldiers and Sailors Home to get maintenance vehicles and so forth over to the cemetery in that area. So the intent is that it can carry that kind of traffic. It doesn't have sidewalks on it, but it's got wide shoulders. So the intent is for it to be service both.
Yeah, so that'll just be like an asphalt or is that concrete surface? I'm just curious.
Yeah, a concrete surface.
Okay.
Yep.
I just saw a comment in the comment section. I know Adam Truck commented about State Street. I don't know if this was discussed in your meetings yet, but about no access to State from the Bayfront Parkway. Was that I know in the earlier design, was that ever considered? Is it being considered? Is it a must-have? Again, I think that's the reason why a lot of people think it looks like a highway when you see the streets going down and the street coming up and the retaining walls and so forth. Has there been any discussion on that, or is that not going to even be discussed any further?
I think it's not. I would consider that to be settled. There was quite a bit of conversation about that, I would say, very early on in the feasibility analysis. But ultimately, I think, we talked about, the amount of access the access points that exist now for the city to access the parkway, the businesses that would be impacted nearby, and all of those types of things. And we dismissed that thought.
Okay. So the input that you received from citizens and businesses said that we need to have that State Street access to the Bayfront Parkway. We couldn't enter from Holland and from other locations then.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I speak on that, Brian?
Absolutely.
I want to remind everybody that, this whole process started back when, around 2015, 2016, when we were having dozens and dozens and dozens of stakeholder meetings that I attended, most of them. And it was nearly unanimous that people insisted that there be four-way access. It was looked at no access, two-way access, or four-way access at State Street. And it was nearly unanimous that people insisted on four-way access at State Street after dozens and dozens of meetings with every conceivable stakeholder. So that's why it's being dismissed at this point, because it was nearly a unanimous decision.
Yeah. I just didn't know if there was any other further consideration, because I know, this is still a design in motion. It's not finalized. So I just had to ask the question since I saw, Adam had put that question on the comment section. For the bridge at Holland Street, what is a typical splitter island dimension? And I guess, Brian, I know you mentioned that this is like a wider splitter island, because that was one of the comments I think council members had, is to enhance safety. the wider the splitter island, the more safe it would be. So you don't feel like you're standing out there, especially if you have a bike or two in the middle of that island.
Mhm. Yeah, good question. I don't know the exact dimension, but I can tell you that you're looking in the, I would say, 16 to 20 foot neighborhood for how much space would be between the two lanes. That splitter island is kind of the pedestrian or bicyclist opportunity, as you you've pointed for everybody else's information, where you could you cross one lane at a time. So you're looking to your left as you cross the first lane, you get to that splitter island, and you got a moment to collect yourself and pause, and now you're looking to the right for, as you cross the next lane. So I think there's going to be plenty of room there for multiple bikes, whether it's a wheelchair, strollers, or that type of thing. We'll make sure there's plenty of room for that.
Yeah, and also for snow, of course, we always have to think about snow and where you're putting that and making sure there's enough room there.
Yep.
And again, I don't know if you're going to get into this, but talking more about the Holland Street bridge, I know we had made comments earlier about the switchback. Are we going to get into that later, or should I not talk about the bridge at Holland yet, the specifics, or just hold on that?
We're going to get into a lot more detail, Dave.
Okay, I'll just hold on my items on that. But there was an item that came up earlier that I think Liz asked or someone asked. There are new at-grade crossing as you're coming on Holland Street. So if you're in a bike, you have to go over the bridge and then down this the switchback and then come out. Wouldn't it make sense to have an at grade coming across the bayfront, just at grade, and not have to force everybody to go over the bridge? I think there was some early discussions on that at the public hearing or so forth, but that was ruled out as not necessary.
Yeah, it was ultimately ruled out, as I kind of mentioned earlier, for the pedestrians' perspective. We think, we're building a pedestrian bridge. We really think we want to direct pedestrians to that safest crossing. Bicyclists are as you probably know, certainly legally allowed to use the road and use those vehicular lanes. And I've talked to bicyclists who've ridden through roundabouts who say they much prefer it to any other intersection. I know that's probably not everybody. I've ridden through one myself. I thought that it was nice because you could see better sort of, the layout of the entire intersection. So that's an option still for bicyclists to take those lanes through the roundabout.
Okay. I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, just when I'm down my list. I'm not going to talk about the bridge yet, but are you going to talk about financing at the end to kind of give us an update on that? I don't want to get into questions now if you're going to say something about that.
I don't have a slide on it, but I'd be happy to give an update. Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because I know before there was discussion about, is this going to be funded? Is the state budget going to allow it? Is this going to hold up and that type of thing? So, okay. If we can get just an update on that and where we're at to see where we're going next. And my other comments were on the bridge, but I can hold off on those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments by council? Seeing no other comments, PennDOT, you can continue with your presentation.
Thank you. Can you still see my presentation screen? I've kind of lost, I can't see anybody's videos anymore.
Yes, we can still see it, Brian. You're on the roundabout slide. Yep.
Great.
There you go.
Thanks. So similar activity on the pedestrian bridge. As Jen mentioned, we looked specifically at Holland. The images that I'll show you could be applied anywhere, really. So that was part of the conversation that was held, and a question that was asked. Can the same theme be applied? Absolutely. Elsewhere. Tylynn International is internationally known. I encourage you to look at their website as well. They have some amazing bridges, in particular pedestrian bridges around the world that they have designed and worked on in various phases. So this was the intent of this peer review. It's a little bit different than the roundabout peer review. In that case, the roundabouts were probably further along in their design process. So maybe there was a little more technical aspects to look at, but again, it was an opportunity for an additional expert to just provide some ideas, some aesthetics, some structure. So that's what we'll talk about next. The location, again, as we kind of showed on some other slides, goes near Holland Street. The location we have, based on feedback from multiple public meetings, shows the bridge located just east of the intersection of Holland Street and the Parkway. So really, it could take off from the bluff. Sort of. There will be connection to existing sidewalks on East Front Street and on Holland. So this is the location, and we heard positive feedback about this location as part of our peer review discussion. I'm going to show a whole lot of renderings of what we have. So this is the initial concept, and I'll say again, this was not a refined design. This was just where our consultant team started. As I've said before, it's sort of the insert generic pedestrian bridge here as a placeholder, and we knew that we would refine it later. But as you can see, the part of the comments that we had heard was maybe the eyesore of this switchback ramp. That somebody said it looks like a parking garage, that type of comment. A lot of pier columns over here supporting that structure, and just an initial look at it. So Tylynn took this design, focused on pedestrian safety, enhancing the pedestrian experience. You have to consider the materials and the layout. You have to consider the cost, the constructability, the impacts potentially to utilities or other things. And then, of course, the maintenance has to be a part of what we are still talking about here. So I'll show you, I think, 6 different concepts. This is the first. One of the most important, I would say, changes that Tylynn identified was the opportunity to shrink the depth of the structure itself. So if we had a preliminary design that showed a pedestrian bridge deck sitting on top of steel girders that supported it, Tylynn recognized that you could really shrink that depth. That overall depth is part of what causes the ramp on the north side to have to be so long. So just, I guess, for everybody's information, 5% is the slope that we'd be looking for that type of ramp to be ADA compliant. And so the higher you are, the longer your ramp is. So anything you can do to lower that height that the bridge deck is at when it gets to the north side of the intersection will shorten that compliant ramp. So this is a steel girder, a pretty simple structure, but they did employ that concept, which allowed them to reduce the number of switchbacks that would be necessary. So as you can see, I'll go back 2 slides. This was a little more significant of switchbacks, looks a little more daunting. This is, a little more palatable, I think. But again, part of the benefits. So I'll show a couple images of each of these, what it would look like from different spots. This is just a simple steel girder bridge. There would have to be some kind of a safe railing on any structure that we choose. This is concept 2. Very similar again, except that this is a truss. So a truss again kind of helps you cut down on the depth of that structure. There's not really deep beams that the bridge is on top of, so you're able to get a little lower. In this case, we're still showing the same kind of ramp on the north side, but all of the different images I'm going to show, some include different types of ramps, different types of structures. They're all sort of interchangeable. We've got a lot of flexibility in that regard. A truss is kind of a see-through look more so. Some might like that, some might not. So there's the notion that you feel a little bit enclosed maybe in a truss. Some might feel too exposed because of the way we have it shown here. We could include a railing with this option. We could also easily include a roof on a truss. That would be a pretty simple task to do. We can include a roof on almost any one of these options that I'm showing you, and we talked quite a bit about that throughout the peer review. And I'd say that, there's no strong consensus, but a good point was made that to pedestrians or bicyclists using this bridge, they're exposed to the elements on the trails and sidewalks everywhere else they're going. So is there really an importance to shield them from it while they're crossing the bridge? So there's a couple pros and cons, I would say, to that. Concept 3, and I guess before I discuss it, the QR code, the sort of barcode in the upper right corner of your screen, if you have a smartphone handy and you take a picture of it, depending on what model phone you have, maybe it'll take you to a website that's sort of like a virtual reality experience of this structure. I think it's a really, really cool way to experience it. You can move your phone around, and it's sort of like you're looking around from a point on that bridge. But this, introduces a little bit of curvature, a little bit more interest, a different type of ramp, again, in its orientation. And you can see, again, the opportunities for landscaping, public art, lighting, that type of thing that would exist in those along the path, along the ramp, and in those green spaces. Some more views of the same bridge, what that kind of curvature would look like. And we really, really appreciate the work again of Tylynn here and their vision. Great stuff. Here is another way to look at the bridge and the ramp. So they're calling this the Terrace Arch. What they've done here is taken this bridge and really slid it a little bit to the east. And that would allow, instead of a switchback, sort of more of a, however you want to describe this, as a zigzag type of ramp. So again, this could be part of any one of the structures. And this is an arch structure. So the white steel sort of tubular members that you see here mainly are what are supporting the bridge in this case. And again, it's just kind of a different look, different feel. And I like these images of the terraced arch. There's opportunities here for stairs and sort of some public space along with the compliant ramp. Here's another sort of curved structure, the Terrace Girder. Again, a curved bridge with a really nice look to it, and a different type of terraced ramp that might be an option here. I think this is the one Deputy Secretary Granger called a skateboarder's paradise. So we do have to keep everything in mind here as we look at these options. Obviously, there's different colors, treatments, and materials that could be part of any of these, really. So these were just some ideas. There's another view of the same, again, with a roof. So, a roof could be added to any of the ones I think that I've showed you so far. Some it might kind of hurt the appeal of it more than others. And then this is the final concept, number 6, which is a cable-stayed structure. So you can see the kind of mast that would be, have cables that would help support that structure. Really a great look. We got great feedback, as Jen mentioned, on all of these ideas, or probably some more than others. I think, again, we didn't vote on it. That was not the purpose of the peer review committee. The purpose was to have some conversations, make sure we're getting everybody's perspective in the discussion. We had a lot of great discussion as we talked through each of these concepts. And that included various ideas. One of them was presented to whichever bridge we choose. It was asked if there's an opportunity for some kind of a gateway welcoming pedestrians and bicyclists to the east side neighborhood, something like that. Could that go, somewhere in the area of where the bridge lands or takes off from? Absolutely, we can work on that. So again, I think we got a lot of approval. I think we got some images that kind of touch on the iconic look that many are after here. and some pictures that we just hadn't really shown anything like that. Here's kind of a summary, just a reminder. I know I went through those quickly, what the different concepts were along with their prices. So the cost is different for each. These are very preliminary estimates. But as you can see, many of them are close to or within what we initially had estimated for the structure. So not out of reach, although some are higher than others. Here's a table just with a little bit more information and kind of pros and cons to help us as we move forward from this point in making a decision. You know, as an example, you know, the Terrace Arch, no switchbacks, it's open and legible, a unique experience. A con is a little bit longer alignment. So, you know, we have the length that it would be, and this is for a pedestrian from one common point south of the intersection to the same point north. So even though those alignments are a little bit different, we might be starting, you know, somewhere near the intersection of Holland and Front Street and ending maybe, you know, at the driveway to the intermodal center, just as an example. But it's the same for each, and you know, it varies slightly by maybe up to 150 feet or so, close to 200 feet difference in the total length. And then there's you can see the cost as well. So that's it for the pedestrian bridge, and this is just the summary slide again of what we gained from both. So I'll just go over that real quick again. Reduced approaches at Sassafras and Holland, reduced pedestrian crossing distances, more green space, larger splitter islands, opportunity for raised crosswalks if we can discuss that with those who will be responsible to maintain that. And similar with the pedestrian bridge, a reduced structure depth, a much smaller switchback ramp, and of course, just a lot of different aesthetic options. So I'll pause there. Mr. Keys, if there are any other questions.
I'll speak first, just because it's not really in the footnotes where everyone else was, you know, available to hear that. You know, I did bring forward the ideal of putting a elevator on the north side, a structure that goes into an elevator, just because the length from where you get on Holland Street to where you depart is nearly 3/4 of a mile average, and little worried about whether people will be able to travel that far if they have mobility or motility issues. And so I just wanted to put that forward first, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues.
And Michael, you did bring that up, and we just finished a 3-page memo today giving you additional information on pros and cons of elevators and pedestrian bridges, especially as they're outside. I know we're talking about the one at Sassafras connecting into a building. That's a little bit different kind of dynamic, but you know, I think I had expressed to you that day there's concerns with it does drive the cost up in the capital, and then there's the long-term additional maintenance. But we will be sending that out. I believe Tom is on the phone to the peer review members tomorrow. And then ultimately, would you be able to forward that to the city council so they could see? And again, it just kind of gives you information either way on again, pros and cons of elevators.
That would be great if you could do that.
Yep, absolutely. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of our follow-ups from the Ped Bridge peer review, and we just completed that today.
I had a question. I mean, as the designs rolled out there, it seemed really interesting, the terraced ones and the landscaping and everything. And it really seemed to pop for the east side. And I guess what struck me is that this looks more like that iconic connection to the bayfront that everybody kind of was dreaming about. So how and that's obviously Erie's first neighborhood. was on the east side. Would there be competing designs? I'm going to use the pun again, down the road to the west, because that does strike me as being, and I don't know, it's just a first impression, but as Jenny said, be blown away by it. So do you stop there and say, this is the iconic connection and the rest is, I don't know, I don't want to say lesser, but just kind of, I'm just trying to think of scale and everything. So.
And Liz, I think it could be kind of the iconic connection, but I think we still want to work with you on all these other design elements, right? Like we hear you, landscaping, or if it's hardscaping, whatever it is, like, again, this peer review plus part of the overall project, it's meant to make it the best it can be. So I think, Tylynn, some of these were a little out of the box. Again, I think it's Ped Bridge number 5, to me, is a skateboarder's paradise. That is not Jen Granger's personal favorite, but, I think it showed the range that was considered. And I will tell you, I was very pleased with the consultant's effort on this. And I think it gives all of us a lot to think about. Brian's right, the cost, some are $2 million more. So the question is, if that is the one that holistically everybody really gets behind, the most expensive one, is that the right bridge, or does it fit? How does it fit too? Because we need to think about how are the other 2 bridges going to look. So I think that you're right. There's a lot. I think it was an amazing, thought-provoking exercise. I am so glad we did it. And like I said, I hope you feel like we knocked your socks off, because we took the feedback that we heard from City Council very seriously in working through this exercise.
Yeah, it's like, I wish I was down there right now getting on, Front Street, or what I think you said, even a little bit east, and being able to, I don't know, go down there and see those flowers as you're making your way down. Probably being able, I would think, to catch the sunset up there. I don't know for sure because of whatever else is down there. You have the Scott Hotel, but anyhow, I did have, so is the peer review committee the same for both projects?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Excuse me, I would like just to put my 2 cents in to say no to the cable stay though, because, well, it is more expensive, but there's a lot of daredevils out there and people thinking that they're superheroes. And I don't want to see people thinking they're Spider-Man and going up there. Some people who have some issues might be tangled up in those cables. So really, seriously,
Yeah,
things
great
happen,
point. Great point. Yeah. Yep. There's a lot to consider here for sure. And that's a great point that I don't think anybody had brought up yet. So thanks.
Yeah. And Kathy, again, safety is our number 1 priority. I mean, we want it to look good, but it has to be safe. So I think your point is well taken.
Well, you also got to consider the skateboarders.
Mel, are you with me on that one?
Yeah, because
I mean, it's beautiful,
I got
but
a lot of skateboarders coming around that curve. Kids they see it, they're going to try it.
Yep.
Brian, if I could, a question about the footprint of that switchback. I mean, we're landlocked. We can't do anything else. We can't take out a row of parking. It's like kind of like we have so much square footage and we're kind of squeezing this thing into there. I do like the design of it, but it's just, we can't do anything else about the square footage, correct?
We can't, we can't reduce the length of it. So no, I don't think so. I think
I mean, the space, we can't take up any parking, take up more space so that this ramp could be more gradual or whatever. You know,
I see.
we can't go past the limitations because every design is kind of cramped up on the corner here. I don't know if we could extend further and just take out a row of parking, or if the, you know, the intermodal is gonna, you know.
Yeah,
not
so
happy
Dave,
with that.
I will tell you that was a conversation Brian and Tom and I had with Tylynn, and we told them for many reasons, not just the impacts to the parking, that we wanted to stay within the existing footprint.
Okay. Yeah. Then again, it's a challenge. The you know, I kind of do like the designs, but the maintenance of the ice and snow is going to be an issue, as it is with anywhere in Erie, especially on the ramp surfaces here. So it's definitely going to be an issue. Of course, I'd love to see an elevator if possible, especially for people who, you know, can't, you know, transverse that.
And that's why, again, we'll provide that information. It's in the memo. And I think that was one of the concerns, the snow and ice on the Terrace Arch. Brian, can you just back up one? So the great thing about that is, like, you have your ADA compliant way the whole way down, but then you have these side egresses of steps that people could sit on and have a coffee and take in the, you know, the surroundings. But again, in less than ideal weather, they are also another surface that needs to be cleared. So that would be one of the downsides to that Terrace Arch concept.
A couple other things. So what will the process be? I know it's a tough part to actually make a selection. I know money, there's maintenance, there's all those things that be considered. So this is the menu. It needs to be sorted through. But who's going to be the jury to do that? You know, is it just going to be a PennDOT decision based on what we see, and then we'll just kind of find out what that is?
No, that's a great question. There's a couple different avenues that we need to take. We have public involvement, additional public involvement planned in the near future. So this summer, we expect to go out and just give the public an update. That would be in addition to these quarterly meetings that we'll be visiting City Council. So a separate PennDOT-led public meeting. Part of it will be to share the information, what's new in the project, which would include some of this information. Now, again, this is an unusual situation. This is not like a normal PennDOT project to have something like these iconic pedestrian structures that we know. We're hearing, you know, the city, everybody is kind of after something like that. So we need to have a partner who will ultimately maintain it. So we're going to be reaching out and looking and discussing and trying to find a partner to do that. So I think, you know, if there's some organization that's ultimately willing to take on that future maintenance, then, you know, naturally they need to have some say. It's no different than the raised crosswalks that we wouldn't build unless the city of Erie, assuming they're going to plow them. You know, we had some kind of conversation with the city on that first. It's the same here. That has to be part of that decision process.
I just have a couple more, if I could, Mr. Keys. The with the design, I have to admit I was surprised. I wasn't expecting this type of menu of design. So you know, congratulations there. Thank you. But the kind of picking up what you said, Brian, you know, maybe if we do get to a design and we kind of get down to a little bit, maybe there could be some type of public charrette, design charrette that could really make it uniquely Erie, something that could really, you know, just not be any USA type of bridge. Maybe it's something local and contextual to Erie. But I know these are just designs, like basic designs, but maybe once we get to a point closer, we can make it more unique by, you know, whether it be the sides of the bridge or the, you know, some type of aesthetic to the bridge. Would that make sense? Has that been done before?
I think, yeah. So Dave, part of the public meeting we're going to hold this summer, there will be opportunities for people to say, you know, we'll receive comment forms. We'll probably post opportunity to comment on the webpage, and that's their opportunity. And I think we can be blunt and ask that question, right? Are there special treatments you would like to see on the pedestrian bridge? And then we can take that information and go from there. But wait, I just want to ask, did we knock your socks off? Because that's what we were shooting for tonight.
My socks are still on, but it was much better than I expected. So put it that way.
Excellent. Listen, I'll take it, Dave. That's great to hear.
And the last thing I had, and sorry to be kind of hogging this, but when we do talk about the budget, I mean, hopefully, if there is any cuts, that we don't cut on the aesthetics and the quality of space, and we do cut on the amount of road width and concrete, because I'm sure we much more appreciate the design, the quality of space, you know, especially with the kind of the designs that you put forward here. You know, it'd be nice to keep that, because usually if we get down to budget and we get to the end, it's, you know, that's first thing that goes is aesthetics, and all of a sudden we just have a concrete bridge and we say, okay, that's it. I know you can't control that. I'm just kind of giving you my opinion. Usually I know budgets and how projects goes. When you get to the end, it's like, oh, what do we cut? Oh, we'll just cut this nice looking bridge and make it a concrete girder, you know. So,
yeah.
Personal
Understood. Understood. We've got that noted. And you're not alone. Sorry.
Well, I can tell you, this is Mel. I can tell you that my feet are bare right now. I had shoes and socks on, but
I love it.
you know, they're bare. Good thing it's not wintertime.
He was wearing a hat too.
I wanted to ask, it looks like Tylynn and Associates, I mean, they do work worldwide. So I was trying to find, like, you know, someplace nearby. It looks like they've done a lot in Rochester, a variety of different projects. And I wondered if anybody has done there's that pun again, road trip to Rochester. Are they happy with what, I mean, it looked like some of the same things that, you know, that they were trying to generate some interest in, like there's a public market that they worked on. And this is just from one quick scan of their website, but are there any other cities nearby where somebody might get an idea of, I mean, this isn't saying that they are going to be the ones that actually do the bridge, but so has anybody looked at their work, like in Rochester, and are people happy with it? Or is there any place else nearby where somebody else might be able to see a bridge in action, a pedestrian bridge, not a you know, highway bridge?
So Liz, you're right. They are international throughout the United States. They have the closest office to you is their Buffalo office, but they have offices in Pennsylvania, and I have worked with them on other projects. So, but they did give us a great portfolio of like their key signature bridges, which is why we ended up picking them. We can forward that over to you, because I can't tell you off the top of my head, like what might be closest, but I think Brian and I probably still have that in our email file. We can definitely send that over for you to look at, because it was amazing.
That would be fun, especially because, you know, it looks like we might all be able to be doing a little travel. So, you know, maybe put that on my itinerary somewhere. Thanks. I'd really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And there are questions in the chat, it looks like, from some participants.
All right, so I see one from Adam Trott. Dave's idea for something uniquely Erie is a good point. Will the Holland Bridge design dictate the others, or will each be unique to the situation? So I think that could be yes to either. I think, you know, as we advance then the designs, you know, for the other ones, they can mimic each other. They could be identical. They could be similar. I think the options, we don't have a predetermined notion on that. That's correct, Brian, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, and let's, I know Adam Trott had several kind of comments and suggestions in here. Okay, so to be clear, do these alternatives still eliminate all controlled at-grade crossings between the city and the strip of the bayfront? Unless I'm misunderstanding, that's what I'm seeing. Do you see that one, Brian?
No, sorry. Yeah, okay. Do these alternatives still I don't know if I fully understand the question, but you know, at Holland, we've got a dual lane roundabout. At State, we have full access. So it's an intersection that whether you're entering the parkway from the city, you can go anywhere that you can today. You'll be able to go when this project is complete. I don't know, Jen, do you think
I think so. And if not, the person that posted that comment, for pedestrians.
Oh, okay.
That's the clarification.
I see. Okay. No, so controlled at-grade crossings will be at State Street. So at State Street, again, I've got some additional slides to talk a little more about State Street. I'll get into that, but it will be a controlled crossing. It'll also be a much shorter crosswalk to get from north to south. And I'll show a little bit more about that in a minute.
Another question, and I guess, Mr. Keys, I just want to pause because I think a lot of these questions are not necessarily from members of council, which we'll happily entertain, but are there any other questions from members of the council that we should, I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Ms. Granger, Jim Winarski here. Thanks to Mr. Frank for getting me on, but I just want to say, yes, it knocked my socks off a little bit here. Very impressed. It's a great update, great presentation. I like the proposed modifications that the PennDOT has come up with. David had great questions. Liz had good questions. I mean, a lot of these concepts, I mean, I don't know if there's one I don't like, to be honest with you. It's pretty cool that there's that many options. I hope with that many options, it doesn't take longer to happen, but I just appreciate the work that is being done and the updates that you've given council, and look forward to moving forward with this project. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. Again,
Thank you.
I know several of you were incredibly frustrated with the process for a while, and I want you to know we heard you. So again, tonight, and for the peer review committees, I can't thank the folks that sat on those committees. Again, we may not have everybody didn't have to agree 100%. It wasn't meant to do that, but those folks put in some time and provided us with input, and we went forward. So I will try, Mr. Keys, as long as you're okay with that, I'll try and ask a couple more of these questions in the chat box and have Brian or myself answer them. Do you want us to keep moving forward? I don't know what else is on your docket for this evening, so.
We have nothing else but this scheduled for this evening. You can continue to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you. So Brian, the next one is, can we incorporate stairs that would reduce the length of the walk for those that welcome stairs for a quicker route? And could those stairs include a bike tire trough to offer a cut down route length on mingling bikes and peds?
Good question. I think that can be considered. There's always an effort for pedestrians of providing the same sort of start and end point, whether that's somebody in a wheelchair walking down steps. That's something that we strive for where we can. So I think that is part of the reason that you see some of the designs that we've shown. But I don't think that a staircase with a bike trough is out of the question. We can look at that.
There is also a question, is there a set budget for the bridge, or is it going to be dependent upon overall project funding? I will tell you that, you could see all of the concepts were, $2 million is a big gap, but it's, as Brian noted, not out of this world. That would dismiss any of them based on budget. But I think, as we go to the public, we get their input. We're going to be working through the budget process. So the answer is there's not a set budget, but at the same time, I have to be honest with you, it is not an open checkbook. So you know, even if the most expensive pedestrian bridge concept would be asked to be advanced, we're going to look at ways to control those costs. But again, I think to speak to some of the concerns I heard from Dave, if this is the most important element to the community, we are going to do everything in our power to make the aesthetics generally acceptable to the majority of the community and the group. So I don't want you to think, Dave, we're just going to whack it, or we're not going to implement something for the funding. I will tell you, general community consensus on a bridge design, to me, that's a heavier lift than if we have to find, you know, an extra $500,000 or whatever it is. So we have a little bit of time on that, and I don't want you to think, again, this is like an open checkbook. We take the budget very seriously, but I think it was a great question in the panel. I know there's a couple other comments in here, but I think for the good of the group, but those look to be the majority of the questions. I'm just double checking.
And there is a little bit more I'd like to share beyond the peer review. So maybe we'll pause on those questions. I'll share this information. We'll check back in with council. This is State Street. So what you're seeing on your screen, pretty self-explanatory, but on the left is the existing conditions. So if you're a pedestrian to cross the Bayfront Parkway, you're crossing a distance of 86 feet roughly from curb to curb. It's a long crosswalk. In the middle is what we had shown you all in the past, where we showed that we cut that length almost in half. So again, this is where the controlled pedestrian crossing would be. So you've got a pedestrian signal head and a push button there, everything ADA compliant. That was 46 feet. Now, one of the comments that we had and had some discussions with the city engineering department since then is the radius of those curbs is really what affects how long your crossing is at an intersection. We had these radii designed for certain truck turning movements. The city was agreeable to tighten those up a little bit for the sake of the pedestrian. So this is just another improvement that was made, I would say, for pedestrian sake since then. Because we tightened up each of those radii, we were able to shorten the crosswalk distance again down to 31 feet. So it's really, you probably have very few, if any, streets in the city with such a short crossing. And again, it will be controlled. Does anybody have any questions on that improvement? Just want to make sure I explained it well.
Control, is that like the other intersection down by Waterworks where you push it and it reacts to the pedestrian, or is it a normal signalization? I wasn't sure what you meant by controlled. You know, there's that question. One where you push it and man, it stops and you can get across.
Instant gratification. Everybody loves that, right? Yeah, no, it's a good question. That's yet to be determined. That's something that, will be discussed with the city traffic unit as well. They certainly have some input into how they want that. And I think that's a discussion that PennDOT needs to have with them, since it's an intersection between a state route and a city street. Okay. But we can talk that through.
Thank you. I like you putting a name on what it is that I experienced at that other one. Gratification.
Everybody loves it. Yep. Okay. Are there any other questions on this change? Not, I'll move on to the next item. If you think this is an ugly slide, it's because it's the only one that I put together. So this is my handiwork from about 20 minutes before the presentation. I was reviewing some of the correspondence we had with City Council as far as requests, recommendations, and what we were committed to as far as the peer reviews. One of the things that was mentioned was widening what you might call the cap or the bridge at State Street. So just in a 2D plan view, bird's eye view that we're looking at right now, what's sort of outlined in that big thick red line is what you might call on structure. So that is really the bridge that will be built to span over those through lanes of the parkway. So the question, or maybe the thought was, can we widen this? Just wanted to point out, right now this is a 230-foot wide bridge deck, and it includes quite a bit of green space already. Now, could we extend that further? Yes, we could. It's feasible. It's possible. It adds quite a bit of cost, and again, 230 feet is pretty wide as it is. If we extended it, we could extend this line further to the west, but this point right here still kind of holds. Remember, this is the ramp coming up, and that's where that crosswalk would be. So we really can't push the ramp farther to the west, because then it would start to interfere with the next intersection, which is Sassafras, and the same goes on the east side of the intersection. So we really don't see the value gained for the investment. We've got these huge public green spaces here. It can be landscaping, art, etc. We can bump these sidewalks out a little farther away from the curb line. They're kind of in a normal place to be consistent with the way State Street looks to the south and to the north of here. But if that's desirable, that's an easy thing to do to give people walking on those paths a little bit more space between themselves and the intersection. That's a pretty easy fix. So just wanted to show that to council. Is there any questions on that?
Yes, thank you. I have a question. In the top left-hand corner, it looks like there should be water around there somewhere. I don't understand. My knowledge of State Street, there's like water around there somewhere.
Like the lake or the
Right, the bay. Yeah.
No, this is an aerial photo. Maybe it's just the way that it's zoomed in, but like what you see kind of under the green and pink here is the parking lot for the miniature golf. So that's how kind of zoomed in we are. If I had zoomed this out a little bit, probably you'd see what you're thinking of.
Okay.
Okay. Not hearing any other questions. I can come back to that anytime. Current status, maybe at this point, I'll address Mr. Brennan's funding question. Just a reminder, the tally of the funds that we've been able to secure for this project are $60,600,000. So that includes all the different sources that we've talked about in the past. 21 million of that is from the build grant, so that was awarded in 2020. But still, just a huge project, a great investment, great opportunity for everybody involved, and we feel secure in those funds. I think that might have been part of the question. A full update is there is a funding gap that we continue to work on. When I mention that, a lot of times I think it makes people nervous. Just remember, at one point we had $0 for this project when it was the #1 ranked project on the long range transportation plan for the Erie MPO. Once upon a time, there was no money for it, and we've come a long way, and that's been through incremental steps and a lot of great collaboration and working together with so many people in the area. So again, just we're at 60.6 million funded. Our current estimate is in the 75 to 85 $1 million range. So you can do the math on that. We have maybe a $15 to $25 million gap. Again, a number that makes people nervous. We've come a long way in the amount of money we've been able to get. We're confident that we'll explore every option to continue to close that gap. And really the decisions about what might have to be left out, off the table, that type of thing, I'd rather not even go into that now. There's been many projects that I've been involved with in PennDOT in the past where if you don't have everything you need to do the whole thing, there's times where you just have to make the hard decision of what sort of parsing that out and phasing it looks like. It doesn't mean that certain parts don't get done. We're committed to that pedestrian bridge, so we hear you all, we hear everybody. That's not just city council. We understand that's important to the community. So as far as the current status goes, other information, we're in the final design phase. We continue to coordinate with CSX Railroad on their track relocation and the Port Authority on their related project. And again, we've got some public outreach that Jen and I both talked about coming this summer. City Council will get their own invite to that pre-meeting, to that public meeting. So we'll keep you in the loop on that. Is there any questions on anything I just shared or anything else?
Yes, Brian, thank you very much for your presentation. Going back to that slide that I had just recently talked about, yes, thank you. Would by any chance the mini view golf be able to stay there realistically? Would they be able to fit in there or no?
I think that is being discussed with that port project that's active right now. So
yeah, Kathy, Brian's right. That's part of the Port Authority's Front Street project that they're working on. Yep.
Okay. It looks like there'd be still some room to have it there. Okay. Thanks.
If I can comment on the mini golf and the Port Authority project, we looked at that quite extensively, and it looks highly unlikely that the mini golf can stay. And I talked to Teresa Stankiewicz extensively about that and tried to speak on her behalf with the port and the people on that project. And I'm thinking right now it's highly unlikely that they'll be staying there.
And John, I haven't gotten updated on those kind of stats lately, but for some reason, I thought that there was a spot on the Port Authority property that could accommodate their relocation.
That's correct. Out at Liberty Park, there was an option.
So I didn't imagine that.
Some of the infrastructure costs that would be involved to provide the required bathrooms and things like that. And then there was discussion about maybe the mini golf being able to share the existing park and ride bathroom out there, which wasn't widely accepted. So, I mean, it's not ruled off yet, but that they need water and sewer and things we'd work with them on. But then this whole bathroom and these other infrastructure needs, we're driving the cost up to the point where the mini golf people were uncomfortable bearing additional costs just to be relocated. So if their reimbursement was able, or their buyout was able to raise, then maybe they'd have enough money to relocate over there. But that was a touchy area, the financing of the whole thing. So it's still a work in progress.
Thank you. Adam Trott has something in the chat that I had with Liz Allen, had talked with Ed Kissel about the Wolverine Park, that years ago, that area was, I think if I get this right from recall, was gifted to Erie, and that Wolverine Park area was supposed to stay Green Park. And that was the reason it was given to Erie, to maintain a peaceful setting. Am I correct, John, in that?
I'm not sure of the answer to that.
There is history behind that. I know that. Liz, do you remember that?
I sort of remember it. I'm sorry, I'm like multitasking here.
Yeah. I know Ed has the history of all of that area, and by the nature of that park, I believe it was specifically, I remember as a kid walking around in that area because the the ship was down there, and the Wolverine, part of the Wolverine was down there. But that specifically was supposed to be a green area always, like forever and ever. It's like one of those stipulations where I'm giving you this land, but it has to stay this way.
Well, I think the nature of the project here is it's going to remain green and possibly even greener than it is now as a result of this project.
Yeah, and Kathy, we can follow up with the Port Authority between now and our next briefing in a couple of months, and you know, get some additional information for you on that, because those things are all tied to the Front Street connector.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
The road, as it's designed, looks like it's going to kind of swoop through the existing parking lot, but nip the mini golf, and then nip the Gem City Marine building there that's already been purchased, and so it's going to kind of cut the corner there, but everything green there is going to remain green. And that road really isn't that obtrusive because it's just kind of mostly on existing parking lot.
Yeah, and at least for what we have shown here, you know, to John's point, what is currently parking lot will become additional green space. So I would agree.
If I can cut in, I saw Mel Witherspoon raise his hand. Do you have something to add, Mr. Witherspoon? You've been quite patient.
No, it was answered. Thank you.
Our next steps, I think we've already discussed these, but peer review collaboration, Holland Street, further discussions about that selection. Maintenance agreements will be a very important part of this. That's not just for bridges, but for all the amenities that are planned, landscaping, lighting, etc. And we are anticipating opening bids in the spring, just about a year from now. So those are the next steps. Everything that I've showed you tonight will be on our website. Portions of, or I should say the entire presentations from the peer reviews are on there on our project website, along with meeting minutes from those meetings. So if you want any more details about what may have been discussed there, that's all available. And that's all we have as far as presentation goes. Mr. Keys, if there's anything else, we're happy to answer questions.
Well, I have one more comment about the pedestrian bridges, and there's been concern about the length of travel and the slopes and everything, but in the Bureau of Engineering, we did some preliminary work on a tunnel just west of Holland Street that would function as a pedestrian tunnel that would be a much shorter distance, and a lot of concerns were brought up about safety and lighting and et cetera, those kinds of things. So it might have been ruled out at the time, but I mean, it's still on the table. If for some reason the bridges become objectionable or a cost issue or a concern about travel distance or things like that, and if things can be done to improve safety of a tunnel, there is a tunnel option there that works grade wise.
So John,
travel distance.
I'm going to be honest with you, John. The tunnel option is not on the table. Again, for all the reasons plus many more that you didn't mention, it is a major safety concern. I will tell you, any pedestrian tunnel that exists on any project that I'm working on, we are trying to eliminate those, either cutting them open or putting in pedestrian bridges. Again, from a security perspective, they're problematic. From a safety perspective to individuals, again, we also have water table issues that are concerns in this part of Erie. So I understand your perspective on it, but for the good of the group, I want to make sure people understand that ship has sailed, no pun intended.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not a proponent of it, and I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just, in order to present a complete analysis of the whole situation, that is an option. So I'm just putting it back on the table so everybody can rule it out effectively. And, so it can be said that there was a complete discussion and a complete analysis of every option. I'm not in favor of a tunnel. I'm just saying that is a possibility if the group was leaning to another option, but if it's off the table, that's fine as well. We can't say we didn't consider it.
Understood. I just, again, in full openness and disclosure, we put 7 different ped bridge concepts on the table, and ultimately we're still in the sausage making business, right? So we're going to be looking for additional input at the public meeting. And again, I'm personally excited about it. And I'm seeing some feedback in the column that most people are preferring bridges to tunnels, again, for many of the reasons that John, between you and I, we rattled off. So,
and that's fine. I just want to say we didn't put it out there for consideration.
Jenny, do you think, will public meetings, will they be virtual or hybrid, do you think, or?
Liz, I'm telling you, I'm hopeful that we can do them in person.
Okay.
So, we obviously are concerned about everybody's safety, but yeah, we'd like to do them in person. We may be able to do one of each. I think we're just now starting to talk about the format, but that's a great question.
Okay. And I think people, we'll have this on YouTube, so people, some people joined late, so they'll be able to go back and see from the roundabouts to the pedestrian bridges, they'll be able to see what's out there now. So I think they can be informed too then and be able to ask good questions and give good feedback and everything. So
I love it.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. I like it much better when I'm making, we're working to make city council happy and put ideas in front of you, right? It's a much better dynamic. I feel like we're getting stuff accomplished.
Jen, I just had one kind of final comment here. I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but when they do get down to the kind of the bridge selection, there are ways to make these bridges unique and also stay in budget, with some creativity.
Yep.
It doesn't all have to be $1 million. Maybe there's ways we could do it locally with some of our local steel people, which are pretty talented. But I just want to bring another item into the picture for those bridges. I mean, they could be treated as gateways to the city. We have a gateway to the east, gateway to the west with both bridges, and make that be unique, and that could really say something for the city. And barely, again, uniqueness is what I keep looking for, and I think a lot of people have stressed that. But my last comment is I just want to thank you for listening and responding. This was a great presentation, and I'm hoping for continued conversation. And as you can see, we really care about this, or we wouldn't be asking so many questions. And we just want what's best for our city, and as everyone does. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you.
If I can comment on with Mr. In the peer review context, we were speaking with the East Side Task Force people about possibly having some type of iconic connection, neighborhood connection, some type of welcoming to the neighborhood as you usher into where the bridge would be. And so those types of conversations were initiated, and I'm hopeful that they'll go forward, and within the context of the neighborhood groups actually put forward some type of model that we can look at.
Yes, absolutely. We're committed to carrying those conversations forward. I think that was a great start there. To those who weren't there, the one piece we mentioned, the maybe gateway on the east side. The other was the question of that we've kind of touched on tonight, which is what about the Market House, where the bridge might be over on the west side. more discussion about where a location might be for that bridge, but ultimately we did, connect with the architect who's working on the Market House, just so that we're making sure that, things can be consistent and if not identical, complementary in some way. Again, that's not a decision, as Jen mentioned, that PennDOT wants to make about the bridges in the city. That'll be up to the public and others more suited to that type of decision.
Any other questions from council? Well, I see we're still getting things in the chat about the at-grade crossings. For the good of the order, are there any way that some semblance of an at-grade crossing at Holland Street can be kept?
We still really feel that if you're going to build a pedestrian bridge in a safe and accessible way to cross, that it's not best to direct pedestrians down to that crossing. We say that we believe that pedestrian crossings work with roundabouts just fine. We've got a lot of places in the district even where we can point to that. But when you have a pedestrian bridge, such a huge investment and a clearly the safest possible way for people to cross the parkway, that's where we really think it needs to be and stay. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Brian, people are going to cross that grade no matter what, though. That's the thing. I think they're going to do it. So why not provide a path access for it? I know what you're saying. Let's direct people to the bridge. It makes sense. But people will go at grade and try to walk on the grass. So just wanted to add that in.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if I could, I do agree with Mr. Brennan, and so I think that's a good concept. Send everyone to the bridge, particularly coming down. I believe everyone will probably use the bridge, but when you turn around and ascending to go back toward the city, I don't know what the anthropological answer would be, whether I'll go this way or whether I'll run across the street, and whether we should plan for that particular instance or not. It's just a comment. We don't have to answer it today. I just wanted to put that out there for good of the order.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, could you put that slide up again for the roundabouts, just the one that you settled on with the after Kittleson? Just yeah,
Sure.
I'm getting questions like in the chat, Facebook Messenger, text. If you could just put that slide up again, it would just really help to. I don't want to answer the question. I just want to know what I'm talking about. So
You got it.
That's
You
not
got
too
it.
much trouble.
No, I just scrolled through them. Can you see the Holland Street intersection now?
Let me see. I don't see the sheer. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get out of here.
I don't
We
think
don't see it.
are you sharing?
Yeah,
Brian, you'll have to reshare your screen.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Thanks. Thank you. One lane, right? Am I right?
One lane for Holland on the north
That's
side.
what I
Yep.
thought. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Brian,
Short-term memory loss during a study session, but I was pretty sure that's what you had showed. So thank you.
Brian,
Thanks.
before we get too far off the pedestrian and Holland Street issue,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have this number on top of my head, but is the existing slope of Holland Street exceed 5% and possibly even 8%?
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
so-
absolutely correct. Yep.
Right. So if we were providing an at-grade crossing at Holland Street, we would be leading to it with a slope that exceeds ADA. But by leading them to the bridge, we can achieve ADA. So that's a reason to lead them to the bridge and then possibly even remove the sidewalk and make it to where, anybody who was a diehard going to walk through there and try to cross that grade could do it. But if we even eliminated the sidewalk in favor of pushing everybody to the bridge, there would be an ADA accessible route, where on Holland Street at grade, there would not be.
Great point. Yep, one of the benefits of doing it this way, in our mind.
Any other comments by any other council members?
So, Brian, I'm one of those people who, my friends actually, the ones I walk with, call me Cutter, because I like to find the quickest way to do things. And like on 38th Street over here in my area, where it says no pedestrian crossing, I cross, almost got killed the other day. That's another story, because I don't want to go all the way down to McCullen and cross at McCullen and go up 38th Street when I can cross 38th Street to get to my house faster. So I'm going to be one of those pedestrian crossers, even though technically I know it's not the safest way. Will there be a pedestrian signal for me to cross?
At Holland Street?
Yes.
No, there's not. We don't have one planned. No, we don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are we asking design professionals to design against the specifications in the law just because somebody wants to do something?
The bridges,
If I can
the bridge.
comment, if I would, I don't think we should, belittle anyone's input. Everyone wants to do the best thing for the city, and everyone's not a design professional, and everyone has a right to be heard.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just asking the question, how does it, as a design professional, how do you take input like that? And when it violates safety and violates a code, and you want to build it anyway, we can't design things like that. I'm not belittling anyone. I'm just making my point.
Well, I think you just answered the question like you did, John. And I think we're just bringing up the point that it's going to happen. So we're just thinking about that. It's a good point, and I think everyone's being educated here. So thank you for your input.
We don't have any other, let's see if we have any. I think we've gone through most of what's in the chat. I give Deputy Secretary Granger the last word.
I'm looking forward to coming back to you, prepping for the public meeting. Michael, I can't thank you enough again for representing the city on the peer review group. Again, your input was incredibly important, and I just want to let it at that. Thank you for having us here tonight. Again, we committed to quarterly meetings to update you as we progress the project. And since we are now in May, you probably will see us earlier than 3 months with our public meeting presentation to brief you prior to the full public meeting. So Brian, anything else we want to make sure we follow up on?
No, but thank you all. I appreciate the time and your input.
Thank you all so much.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
we consider ourselves adjourned.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. We'll see everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.